Boom. And we are back. Fedor and I are back. How about this? We got like the United Nations here. We've got Canada, America, and Russia. Right there. I love my new little Fedor toy. This is great. Wearing the gloves. Bobbling his head. We have other toys, of course, but we have a Steve Rogers Expos bobblehead over there whose arm is no longer with us. We have a Larry Johnson bobblehead over there whose 2 arms are no longer with us. So let's see how long Fedor lasts. All right, this is the MMA After Hour. This is when we answer your questions. Take a look at your comments exclusively on Twitter, MMAFighting.twitter.com. You've been sending them to us. Hashtag the MMA Hour. Before we get to the questions, the question of the week. This is a new little thing that we're doing. Question of the week this week, first ever one, was, would you rather own the Houston Rockets or the UFC? Why did I ask this question? Because, as we said earlier, Tillman Fertitta, the third cousin of Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta, is about to purchase the Houston Rockets for $2.2 billion, and the UFC last year was sold by the Fertittas for $4.025 billion. So that was the question. New York Rick, did you weigh in? Did you vote?
I did not vote. I'm trying to remain impartial and not influence the votes. And
can people even tell?
I think, I don't know. I'm just kidding. I just didn't vote.
Okay, thus far we've had over 5,000 votes. 69% of the people voted in favor of the UFC. 31% voted in favor of the Houston Rockets. They'd prefer to own the UFC over the Houston Rockets. These people are crazy. It is a no-brainer. I was expecting most people to vote in favor of the UFC because my audience, UFC fans, of course you'd rather own the Houston Rockets. First of all, the Houston Rockets are a global brand. The Houston Rockets are a brand that is particularly popular in China because of the fact that Yao Ming used to play for them. The Houston Rockets were sold for half of the UFC. You've seen what has happened since then. This is a much better deal. They are a part of the NBA machine. You are a part of the revenue sharing. You are a part of the TV deal. You are a part of the brand that is the NBA. People walk around wearing Houston Rockets hats and jerseys and sweatshirts and shorts. They walk around wearing all kinds of Houston Rockets apparel. We have learned over the past 2 years that people don't particularly like to walk around wearing UFC apparel. This, to me, is a no-brainer. The amount of money that you could sell, the amount of money that you can make, from just being in the business. Forget about the product on the court. And oh, by the way, the Rockets are a very good product on the court these days. They just got Chris Paul. Over the past 15 years, I think it is, they're one of the most successful franchises in the NBA, 2-time champions. How is this even possible? In the UFC, there's so much that could go wrong for you in terms of injuries. God forbid anything worse. And oh, by the way, you have to build stars. And yes, I know that's a part of it in the NBA and things like that, but the promotion and the marketing, the 52 weeks out of the year, it's a much greater grind, pay-per-view and all that. Rockets.
I don't disagree with you. Right. My vote would be for the Houston Rockets. Okay. I think, we also have that love for basketball.
No, but I would say the same about the Houston Astros and the Houston Texans.
Okay, fair enough. I probably wouldn't. Whereas the Houston Rockets, I would.
No, I'm being impartial. It has nothing to do. You just have to look at being in the business of owning
what I'm saying is your vote, team. Your poll, you're asking MMA fans who may or may not even watch basketball. It's going to be skewed that way. I agree with you. I would choose the Houston Rockets. That said, a few things. One, the UFC is also a global brand. You mentioned the Rockets being a global brand. The UFC is also a global brand. Ties to China, not as strong, clearly.
What's a bigger global brand at this point, the UFC or the Houston Rockets?
I would say the Houston Rockets because of the NBA association, for sure. That helps a ton. But I would say the UFC is not lagging a tremendous amount behind with how many international shows they do. There is a huge exposure.
You can do all the international shows you want, but are people in China buying UFC apparel and walking around with it and giving it to their kids?
No, but China's a specific case with the Houston Rockets.
Okay, are people in Japan doing that? Are people in Argentina doing that? Are people?
I would say Japan probably has more UFC.
I don't know.
Than Houston Rockets in particular.
Days.
Not more than NBA. Well, you're not buying NBA.
But you're getting in the business.
Houston Rockets.
You're getting in the business of the NBA, right?
You're buying Houston Rockets, though. We're looking at Houston Rockets.
All right.
Also, you may want to control what is, for all intents and purposes, a league versus an individual team. And even though I would call the Rockets a franchise and the UFC a franchise, and say that there's a more direct comparison to them there than the NBA. You do have more control over the entirety of that roster versus, you have these 15 to 20 players on your one individual team. There's a lot more influence on the various parts of that construction, which I think could be appealing to somebody. Double the price tag is definitely
that's a huge thing.
A huge thing. In,
Not only
in
does it have all these things in its favor, it's also half the price.
Sure.
This is no knock on the UFC. Of course, I love MMA.
If I could own the UFC, I'd love to.
Yeah, of course. But like, I just, it was interesting because he's related to them, and so I thought
third cousin.
And I still can't wrap my head around that $4 billion number. I mean, like,
it's very high.
The Dodgers and the Clippers, and now sports teams aren't for sale very often, and they're going to continue to rise. But
one of the things you mentioned as a positive could also be seen as a detriment in the sense that you're talking about getting into the profit sharing with the NBA.
The TV deal is way more lucrative, even if you're
sure. But in the UFC, they don't have to split the pie; it's theirs.
Sure, but you're not getting. I mean, you're talking billions of dollars as opposed to $100 million, right? You're making more money as one of 30 as opposed to just one in that world.
That with the assumption that everything stays exactly the same. The goal is to grow it, is to make it larger and make that investment worth more than $4 billion and make that TV deal worth more the next time around. Now, granted, I'm not saying that that's something that's going to happen overnight or something that's going to happen exponentially. It's definitely going to be incremental growth. But the idea is you don't have to. Should it grow, you don't have to share it. Whereas in the NBA, there is a part of a system that you're operating under. You don't have complete control. Whereas you do have a lot of control, but you don't have complete control as the owner of a team. That said, I would definitely want to get on board on owning the Houston Rockets. I think they're primed and poised for a run this year. I don't know if they're going to
forget about this year.
State.
Even if they were a last place team, still would rather be.
No, well, that changes the scenario.
No way. That's going to change. It's a cycle.
It is cyclical, but it's not like
you're telling me you wouldn't want to own. I don't know.
Give me the worst. Like, would I want to own the Charlotte?
Yeah, you wouldn't. Tell that to Michael Jordan.
Okay. Would I want to own them as opposed to, let's say, okay, now this is a big caveat here, but you have to go with me on it. If price tags are the same, let's say I could own the UFC for $2 billion, or I could own the Charlotte, what are they now, the Hornets, for $2 billion. I might be more inclined to want to own the UFC.
Nope.
I might.
That is that you're printing money. You see how hard it is these days with the ticket sales and you're not sitting in one city and printing money and selling out tickets. You have to take this thing from town to town
to town. Those sellouts are not guaranteed.
Houston is this thing from town to town to town to town to town and promote and get on the ground and tell people
it's a tough
and make cards and have injuries. Here you're sitting 41 games out of the year. You're sitting there, and if you're a good team, it is a print shop.
You have to be a good team, though. Houston is a good team. A bad team, I don't know how easy it is.
Here's the best part about it. If you buy the UFC, you got to get on there and you have to build stars and you have to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
If I own the Rockets, you know what I do? I find the best GM in the game and I get the heck out of the way and I let him run my business. And
I mean, that's kind of what they did. I feel like Daryl Morey's like up there as one of the
Look at the best franchises, right?
Yeah.
The Thunder and the Spurs. The owner,
the Cavaliers,
the owner,
New York Knicks.
The owner gets. Look at the bad franchises. The owner gets out of the way, and so that's the best part. You sell, you buy it for that much, and then you just get out of the way, as opposed to.
I think this. You raised a good point about the cyclical nature. I think that UFC's star base refreshes more than NBA franchises. I would say that it's much harder to come across a star if
they last as long.
No, well, definitely not that.
Well, that's something too, right?
If you have like a James Harden and you got him for 10 years, that's a nice chunk of time to be able to print that money. But I would say like when everybody was freaking out, what happens when Anderson Silva and George St. Pierre are no longer here? What are we going to do? A Conor McGregor came along and changed the whole game completely. A Joanna Jędrzejczyk comes along. A Ronda Rousey comes along. I think that there will always be a way for that to kind of refresh itself. Sometimes NBA teams go in the tank for a lot longer. I don't disagree with you, though.
We could do a whole show just on this.
This would be fun.
Guilherme just threw one at me, UFC for 4.025 or Formula One for $8 billion.
I don't know anything about Formula
now you're
1.
buying like a whole freaking, like you are literally, Formula 1 is its own sport, right?
So Formula 1 is not a league; it is a sport
Well,
itself?
it's a certain kind of, it's like NASCAR is its own, Formula 1, different kind of car, different kind of race, different kind of track.
That is to say, like, there's not competitors who do that same type of racing?
No.
Yeah, well, that's something else altogether. That's crazy.
But you see, in this case, I would go with UFC just because I enjoy that more, but...
Plus, it's double the price tag for the other.
Okay, let's get to the questions.
Well done. So we're going to do this every week, yeah?
Well, I'm just trying to make the company more money, so I'm trying to think of other ways in
Sponsored
which they can,
by.
Yeah, well,
look, maybe the Houston Rockets
right.
want to throw a little out there. Maybe some tickets for us to go see.
Would be nice.
Okay. This is our actual first question here. I jumped to that because I was Johnny on the spot when you were going to your poll question.
Oh, wow.
If Jon Jones, I think this is a simple yes, no, but I think worth addressing because we had this news come out last week regarding blood testing and further testing for Jon Jones. If Jon Jones goes to Bellator, can he fight right away?
No.
The answer is no because
the commissions will.
It's the commissions.
No, but they will respect USADA.
And Chad Mendes return. People are always asking when he's returning. He just has to serve his time. He's agreed to.
I'm told these days, looking more like next summer.
There you go.
He's got that 2-year suspension, but looking more like next summer. By the way, are there any other questions about Jon Jones?
No, this is the one. So let's get into it.
I have to say, let me just say something right here. Let me just say something.
Oh my God, you adjusted the mic. Here we go.
I have to say, Friday afternoon, I get word and. Reminder, I'm in Montreal, I wouldn't call it vacation, but I'm like not sitting in front of a computer. You're never on vacation doing news, right? And I get the call that Jon Jones has passed his fight night drug test, blood test. Friday night, after the weigh-ins, was a urine test. Of course, that has now come up with the Tyranobol. And then he didn't do a blood that night. Did one the next night, didn't do a urine. Why they do that, I'm not really quite sure, but that's the way it was. And for me, there were 2 questions left unanswered about Jon Jones. Did he pass his fight night test? What's the result of the B sample, right? Malky said when we were in Vegas, they're going to do the B sample. They're going to test it just to make sure. There were 2 things left. And then once you get the B sample back, okay, how are we going to proceed? What's the defense? What is USADA going to do? And oh, by the way, what happened fight night? So I get that information and we put it out there. And I was shocked, literally shocked. I thought I was in a Twilight Zone. I thought I was in some kind of alternate universe at the response to this information. Coming from all corners. This is irrelevant news. This is not even news. This is clickbait. What does this have to do with the failed test? You can't detect Tyranobol in a blood test. Why are you putting this out there? This tells us nothing about the urine test. This tells us nothing about the failed test. This tells us nothing about nothing. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. We didn't know if he passed or failed the fight night test. The last test related to UFC 214. That in itself makes it news. Whether it's big news, small news, gigantic news, little news, breaking news, whatever you want to call it, it is news. We didn't know it. Now we know it. It is news. That makes it news. You get that? Now, are we in the business? And by the way, interesting to hear from the public who likes to always say to us, the media, that we're the negative ones. Are we in the business of only putting out negative news? So are you telling me if Jon would have failed the fight night drug test, then it would be news? Then it would be news. But because he passed it, it's no longer news to you? I don't quite get that. And then for the people who said, this is irrelevant, this has nothing to do with anything, why are you telling us about this? Because you can't detect Tyranobol, which is what he failed for, according to USADA, on Friday via the urine test. This doesn't detect it. Wait a second. Is it impossible to fail for 2 things? Is it impossible to fail for masking agents? Is it impossible for your blood test to come up positive if you failed the urine test the day before? Like, was I the only one who was curious about this? Where did Sean say, who wrote the article, that this refutes the findings of the Friday test? Where did we say that because he passed this test, that means that the Friday test is egregious? Where did we say that because he passed this test, that means that there was a mistake, that he's going to get off scot-free, that he's a innocent man? Where did we say that? All we said was that we got the results of the Fight Night test, and now we know the complete history except for the B sample. We're going to find out the B sample. I couldn't believe even fellow journalists, the way that they were digesting this news. No one said that the result of this Fight Night test had anything to do with the Friday test. No one said that. No one said that. No one said that this being positive means that this is no longer negative. This being negative, it means that this. No one said that they are connected. All we said was that Friday, the last test that he took was a blood test, which, by the way, we didn't even know that it was only a blood test until we found out on Friday, and nothing came up. Okay, good. Now we know the results of every test. We know what happened on the 6th, the 7th, the 27th, or the 28th, the 29th. Now we know it all. Why did everyone have such an issue with this news? I could not understand it. I kept reading the responses. I was like, am I missing something here? Am I not understanding something here? Where did we say that this piece of information has anything to do with that piece of information? That this piece should refute that piece? It doesn't make any sense. I was blown away by the reaction. Now I'm typically, I'm sort of immune to it all, but this one was like, and then seeing like colleagues and people weigh in, I was like, am I missing something here? Am I like what do you understand what I'm saying now at this point? I've been holding on to this since Friday. And now I'm finally letting it out. And it is the tail end of the show. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, did you see the reaction? You're not giving me anything. I don't know where you're coming, and I'm looking to you for guidance here. Like, did you see the reaction? Did you see everyone weigh in? All of a sudden, I'm being followed by thousands of PD experts who are telling me all sorts of things about Toronto. Like, they know for a fact that this is detected and that in 72 hours and 48 hours. But forget about all that. Where did we say that this piece of information means that piece of information on Friday is no longer valid because this was a pass, that this was a negative, that he did not fail that test? Where did we say that?
We did not.
Okay, so why did everyone go nuts over this?
I think, and I'm speaking for a lot of people at this point that don't probably want me speaking for them, but I think it's because the next piece of news that people were hoping for was regarding that failed test. Now,
get out of here with that. That has nothing to do with me.
If that truly, look, I'm trying to. You asked me a
but I saw these people saying it's irrelevant. How is this information irrelevant?
It's not. They're misguided.
You're looking for confirmation for the Friday. I didn't say I got the B sample result. I didn't say that.
But that's what people were looking for.
Well, good for you.
That's what people were pinning their hopes to, was that the next bit of Jon Jones news that we were going to get was the B sample came back and he failed or did not fail. That's what people were looking for. And when their expectation was disrupted, their thought was, well, why didn't I get that? That's what they were looking for.
Well,
now, is that fair? Is that reasonable? Is that something that somebody should expect? No, maybe not. But no, I think
as a result of that reporting, we even got USADA to officially confirm. Yes. USADA doesn't do that. This was my favorite byproduct of this whole exchange, by the way. My favorite thing. My friends over at MMA Junkie writing this. Earlier today, MMAFighting.com cited multiple sources close to Jones in reporting Jones's post-fight negative the night of the fight. Yep. Danielle Urick, who's a spokesperson for USADA, Urick, however, cited Jones's agent, presumably longtime rep Malky Kawa, as the source. Quote, given the fact that Mr. Jones's agent has publicly commented on this case, blah, 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 we can confirm Mr. Jones provided urine. Okay, and then they go to the statement that they gave to me first. So basically, if you read that earlier paragraph, MMA Junkie is saying that I said I had multiple sources that confirmed the post-fight negative, but really it's presumably Malky Kawa. They're confusing two stories. Urick is talking about Malky on my show, Vegas, talking about Turinabol. I spoke to 3 people who confirmed that. I'm not going to tell you who they are, but you're telling me that I said I had multiple and I really only had one. You're calling me a liar right now. Like, I'm reading this stuff and I'm like, have I just lost my mind? What is going on here? I'm being called a liar. I legitimately spoke to 3 people who told me this. Then I confirmed it and put it out there for the public. Then USADA comes out and says what they say. And they're guessing that it was maybe... No, Malky is the other thing, is saying about Turinabol. It had nothing to do with the fight night test. Do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
it was shocking. And then at one point I just said, I have to put my phone away because I don't understand what's going on with these people. Like, am I living in some kind of alternate universe? All we put out there, it's kind of like saying, okay, I don't know, Chris Avila is going to fight Mairbek Taisumov, and everyone being like, what does that have to do with Nate Diaz? No, I mean, like the last piece of information left was the fight night sample, right? The fight night sample. That was it. That's all I put out there. It was a positive. Okay, now we know everything. Let's focus on Friday and let's tackle that. But what if he passed it? What if he failed it? What if he failed it? What if he failed it for something completely different? Let's not forget.
I think
that Brock Lesnar failed for 2 substances.
Right? You're not wrong. But the question of what if he failed it is what is driving this. Because he didn't fail it, they are saying, I don't care. I don't care that he passed this blood test. They would only care if he failed it. Right or wrong, I think you made a great point about everybody's quick to talk about how the media propagates negative stories only rather than, when people do good and in this case, do what's required of them to pass the drug test. But I think people were saying, well, I don't care. Yes, whatever. I don't care about this. Let me know about the other thing, which is not how that game.
And by the
works.
way, in my hysteria, Brock failed 2 tests. Jones failed for 2 substances. So here's a guy who's actually had a history of failing for 2 different substances, and yet everyone's like, "Oh, what does this have to do with the price of tea in China? What are you talking about?" So anyway, I had to get that out because I could not understand the reaction to this story. Like, never did I say, and yes, should we have maybe spoon-fed you the information that Turinabol can't be detected in blood according to, USADA and according to other sources? Okay, fair enough. I'm putting out a 140-character tweet. All I'm telling you is that we found out that on fight night, he passed the blood test. Cool. Now let's move on and wait for the B sample. That's it.
Yeah, I don't think the reaction would have been much different if you had said, urine this, is a test that can detect this and blood is not. But, yeah, I can't. It's hard for me to. You're asking me to justify it. It's hard for me because I don't understand you.
Yeah, sorry, I spent too much time on that. Let's go rapid fire here.
If DJ wins this week,
yes,
who's next for him at 125, or do we insert him into a super fight? He's now broken. If he wins, he has now broken the record held by Anderson Silva for title.
I think this opens the door to potential super fights. There's always going to be someone out there at 125. Sergio Pettis would make a lot of sense. We'll see what happens with Joseph Benavidez, although I've already weighed in on that one.
I like that one.
135 I think is a little more clogged up with, obviously Cody and TJ, and then there's the Jimmy Rivera, Dominic Cruz situation. But I think he just wanted to get by the record. He's talked about going to 20. I don't think this is a guy who's going to be jumping around, but I think this opens the door to that potential.
Dan Hardy, have we seen his last fight in the octagon? Is he settling into commentary and away from fighting, or is that itch still there? What do you think?
He's the one who keeps saying that he wants to fight, and who am I? The longer we are removed from his last fight, I think the chances increase that he will not fight again.
Sure.
If you're to put a gun to my head and say, what do you think? I say we've seen his last fight. But that's just total guess feeling. He keeps fighting for it. He keeps doing the test, so more power to him.
December. Who's gonna be our headliner come end of year? What do we look for?
This is not with any information. This is just what I know they want, and this is just what has been expressed before August 26th. Conor Nate 3.
Huge.
WME needs it. Everyone needs it. Could they get it done? Could they make the deal happen? Does Nate get what he wants? Does Conor get what he wants? There's a lot of hurdles, but that's what they want. That's choice number 1 for that card.
CM Punk, we talked about a potential return. If he does return, is he on a UFC main card? Is he on a TV card? How do you see that shaking out should he return?
He is on a main card. He is on pay-per-view.
Pay-per-view job.
Yeah.
Daniel Cormier, when he does come back, he's taking some time off. When he does come back, what does he get in his comeback? Does he jump back right into the contenders?
Yeah.
Does he get one
Well, is he champion or not? That's the big question, right?
That is a great question.
Is he a champion or not?
Fair
if he
point.
is not a champion, I think the Jimmy Manuwa fight makes a lot of sense. And by the way, I think he should take the rest of the year off, come back in 2018. If he's not a champion. If he is a champion, it's a little different. Probably has to fight Alexander Gustafsson.
Right. Do you think he will be a champion?
That's me guessing on the test and everything.
Sure.
I think if Jon is found guilty, then he becomes a champion.
Even without, due process or anything like that involved, this timeline is still even going to be an issue. Regardless of what the test results end up being, holding up the division with the belt is based on, the timeline of Jon returning, whether it's due to suspension or not. DC could be ready should that need to happen, but he sounds like he's going to take some time off.
There was a name in there, Chris Weidman, who's still a middleweight, who's coming off a win. I still feel like he could be a player at 205. I've said this long ago.
We can hit this quickly. Yeah. How impressed Zabit
lived up to the hype.
And Taisumov as well.
I just don't like the Lobov call out.
I love it. Call him out.
He's fighting Andre Fili. Don't waste your call out.
So who could he have called out? Give me a name.
I don't know what your name is, but that's pretty much.
How much attention would it have gotten compared to calling out Artem Lobov?
But everyone calls out Artem. I mean, but literally every card he is called out.
We are now talking about him more than he would have been talked about if he hadn't called out Artem Lobov.
Doesn't do anything. Nothing's going to happen as a result. So it's one step above saying whoever the UFC wants. Okay, cool.
No.
It's a step above.
Disagree.
It's not quite the same, but it's a step above.
I feel like it's many steps above. We are talking about him because he called out somebody he couldn't even fight.
Yeah, I guess.
It works. Yeah, it works. Call out Artem Lobov.
It's like when Mickey Gall called out Dan Hardy. We talked about it, but it ended up being a futile call out.
Well, now he botched that. He hasn't gotten himself a fight booked.
And trust me, he will not be fighting him next because Artem's fighting someone else.
No, but he doesn't have to fight Lobov. If he fights soon,
no, but I don't think the Dan Hardy call out led to him being inactive for 9 months.
No, but if he had been active, we would have still been thinking of him due to that Dan Hardy call out. He botched it. He took too long. Did the UFC make a mistake by not having a high-profile card on Fox this weekend to try and capture the casuals from AMAC? Essentially,
after the fact,
did they miss the boat this weekend trying to capitalize on people who may be looking for MMA, and instead it was on Fight Pass?
The Mayweather-McGregor card was the Super Bowl on steroids. It was so big. I still feel like I'm, experiencing a bit of a hangover. I think that the fans needed some time to sort of ease their way back into things. Like when you have the Super Bowl, when you have the World Cup final, when you have the NBA finals, like you don't just go back into the regular season the next week. The UFC doesn't do that. The train moves along. So I think actually easing people's way into it was the smarter thing to do. Now, they didn't plan for any of this. Like when they laid out the schedule in God knows when, December, January, like they weren't planning for August 26th being that day, but I think it actually worked out in their benefit.
Last question, most important question. Have you subscribed to Mighty Mouse's Twitch channel yet?
I have always said, and you can go back and listen to this over the years, should he break the record, I will subscribe. So, break the record on Saturday, and I will consider it.
Wow.
I've always said that.
You have always said that.
UFC 215 on Saturday.
Since the start of time. UFC 215.
By the way, look, it's not going to sell a boatload of pay-per-views. I really like this card.
Good card.
Can I just tell you some of the things I like about this card?
Hit me.
The return of Cajun Johnson right off the bat is exciting for me because the man talks a lot. So let's see how he's been, training and whatnot.
Quieter now, but
Gavin Tucker. Remember what Gavin Tucker did in Halifax?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Henry Cejudo against Wilson Hayes. Great fight at 125.
2 former title challengers.
Sarah McMahon. Always love watching her fight.
On a roll.
Jeremy Stevens against Gilbert Melendez in Gilbert's 145-pound debut.
Fireworks.
Latifi Pedro. Pedro's look great.
Yep.
Neil Magny, RDA. We talked about RDA. And then Nunes Shevchenko, Demetrius Reborg. Imagine we had Ngannou up in there.
That would have been nice.
I mean, not for... I've seen worse cards. I've been to worse cards.
Timing-wise, though, tough.
It's a
coming on the end of Mayweather
that's
McGregor.
The problem.
And then 217 coming up.
Right. 216 is the one that's going to...
also, sure.
I think this is actually... You can argue this is a better card. 216 has some names. Tom Duquesnoy, Page, of course, Dunham Dariush, Verdum Lewis, Tony, blah, blah. But like, my dream is combine these. You combine those 2 cards, fantastic. But they gotta fill these slots.
You glossed over it.
I what? Oh, yeah.
You glossed over this, but I'm going to remind you. There's something on the line for us on Saturday.
Oh, that's right.
The result of Amanda Nunes and Valentina Shevchenko.
Who did I pick?
You picked Shevchenko.
I don't even remember.
Wow, that's bad. That's bad, Ariel.
I picked Shevchenko. It's been a long day.
You need Shevchenko. I need Nunes. There's stakes for this Saturday. Let's see who comes out on top.
All right.
We got it. We got a reprieve. Now it's time.
Yeah, I forgot about that. This is big time.
For you to pay the piper.
This is big time stuff. So if Nunes wins, you win. If Shevchenko wins, I win.
That's it.
And what's at stake?
Comes down to that. We didn't determine stakes. That's the problem.
All right.
Everything is at stake.
Everything.
The fate of the universe is at stake.
All right. Well, thank you. We'll see what happens. And by the way, thank you to everyone out there who had my back regarding those thieves over at An Experience With, who have yet to pay me half of what I was owed for that Conor McGregor thing. I didn't expect it to turn into that, but those people got out of town as far as Twitter is concerned quicker than I don't know what. They completely shut down their page.
I saw you wanted them to donate to Harvey.
I said.
And it was already gone.
It was gone.
The handle was already gone.
Unbelievable. Lies after lies after lies. They sold it to airplane companies. I mean, it was a great experience and all, but like, I'm not asking for much. Just pay me what you said you were going to pay me. And then I started to learn about the company and lies in the past and the way they changed their company name and go bankrupt. I mean, what a bunch of jokers. That was very disappointing. Never had that happen to me, where someone said, like, I'm an honorable guy. I feel like I went above and beyond. I feel like I delivered for them. Just pay me what I'm owed. Horrible. And by the way, I'm not one. Yes, I should have. I'm not one to air the dirty laundry, but they announced that they have this Schwarzenegger thing, and then they had announced like the interviewer for it, and someone sent it to me because I mentioned it in passing on this show, and I was like, oh, this poor lady. I hope she gets paid up front. And then then I got worked up, sort of like I got worked up earlier about the whole Jon Jones thing. People don't know, but I could get worked up.
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah,
I've seen that fiery temper.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone in the back. You can hear my music. We are done for the day. We are done for the week. On this Tuesday, September 5th, New York Rick just got up. Look at this guy. Can't even wait till the end of the show. See that? Look at that. What the heck? I'm still here. Unbelievable, this guy. Who knows? Like, what more does he have to do than sit there for the next 2 minutes as I say goodbye to all of you? Apparently a lot. Well, I'm going to Edmonton. One of the things I really like to do is visit new Canadian cities that I have not been to. I get to do that this week. I get to visit beautiful Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, home of the Eskimos. Can't wait for that. And perhaps along the way, I'll see a little bit of history. Demetrius Johnson looking to break Anderson Silva's UFC title defense record. He'll be fighting Ray Borg on Saturday. And then, of course, Amanda Nunes versus Valentina Shevchenko for the women's bantamweight title. DJ, of course, defending his flyweight title. What a fun show. What a fun day. Thank you for everyone who stopped by. I hope my son had a good first day in kindergarten. It's a very nervous day for this parent. They grow up so fast. They really do. See how it goes. I'll keep all of you posted out there. Thank you very much to Joanne Calderwood. Good luck to her in November against Beck Rawlings, Sydney, Australia. Thank you very much to Francis Ngannou. Bon anniversaire. Happy birthday to him. Thank you very much to Patty Pimblett. Patty was great. Very intense. Enjoyed that conversation. Thank you very much to Paige Van Zandt. Great to catch up with her. Good luck on October 7th. Thank you very much to Owen Roddy. Thank you very much to Steven Espinoza for stopping by. Thank you very much to Ben Askren, Rafael Dos Anjos, and of course the great Derek Lewis doing great work out there in Houston. All the best to everyone in Florida as well. Back next week. Peace. Somebody out.